Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to another episode of the Sword and Shield. I am Chief Master Sergeant Christopher Howard, 960th COG Superintendent, and today with me I have
Captain Billy Hutto, Chief of Standval, 960th COG.
Master Sgt. Jarrett Miner, 854th Combat Operations Squadron Unit Crew Advisor.
Awesome, gentlemen. I really do appreciate you guys taking some time today. We were talking a little bit ago about 9/11 and where were you, right? And you mentioned something, Sergeant Miner, about your time. I was wondering if you could share that with our gladiators about where were you and some of the things that were going on that day.
Absolutely. I joined the Air Force in May of 2000. I felt like I wanted to do something a little more meaningful with my life. I was going to school at the time and signed up to be an F-16 crew chief. And I'm stationed at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona and had been working the mid-shift. And my whole world changed on September 11th because I woke up and saw that there were messages on my voicemail. My mother had called, my girlfriend had called. Everybody was trying to alert me to the fact that something had happened in New York to the Twin Towers. And they called us all into work, and we all got caught up on the news that was happening and then got on with our workday.
Gotcha. So that really did change the workday, right? I mean, I think that all of us that were in during that time, that workday changed instantly, and subsequently, every day after that was different. So how did it change for you?
Yeah, so we worked at a training base. We trained F-16 pilots, and so we were aware that we stood in a position to have an effect on what was going to be going on to go after whatever adversary that our leadership had chosen. And so I took satisfaction in knowing that I had a part in training the pilots that were going to be going overseas and flying missions. And so we did have to ramp up a little bit. We did have to increase our training capacity to make sure we could meet the demands of the pilots that were needed.
Gotcha. Okay. So almost got really quick into a readiness posture. Everybody getting prepped, checking IMR. Okay, is everybody ready to go? Is everything updated? With the idea that there might be a forward deployment in the near future, right?
Absolutely. And that was something my mother was worried about when she had called. I could hear the distress in her voice because here she had her son who had just joined the Air Force, and now this event has kicked off, and she was afraid I was going to have to be deployed. But in my case, I had the role of working there at the training base and supporting the pilot training.
So were you excited? Were you fearful? I mean, what was going on in your head when all this stuff starts going down, that first few hours to that first day, 2 days, when everything starts ramping up really?
I think I just wanted to focus on work, figured that was the best way to handle things. The initial shock and grief for what had happened to my fellow Americans didn't set in until about a week later. But being able to feel like I was part of something bigger and part of something that was going to kind of help solve the problem.
Gotcha.
Helped.
Yeah. Understand. So I was actually overseas at the time already when things were going down. We were briefing a DV in our facility. I was actually in a bunker in Germany. And we get word during the brief that the first tower has been hit. So we had just gotten this TV installed into the work center, having a cable feed into it. So we had Fox News and we had AFN, and that was about it right there. I think we had CNN as well. So we only had just a couple of stations, which was not abnormal back then, especially overseas. You had AFN, then you had AFN, and then there was the time and truth favorite AFN that you could watch the whole time. So, having these news outlets was pretty interesting. So we bring that on, and we're like, man, this is crazy, right? I can't believe this is happening. And everybody's questioning, is it an accident? Is it, what happened? Why did this plane hit? And then we bring on the TV, and then we see the second one hit. And that's that reality moment, right? Instantly, everybody just, whoa, this is no longer an accident. It's no longer a mistake. this is purposeful. That's when it starts setting in. I could still remember my stomach just kind of knotting up right there, because we realized that, holy crap, this is going down. And so we brief our DV, and we're explaining to him what's going on. We're showing him on the TV. Then his aide comes in and says, okay, Pentagon's been hit. He's like, all right, we're packing up. Let's go. And him and his team rolls out. So we're getting prepped. We start shutting down our facility. They start locking down the base, and everybody's in the oh crap mode. Pucker factor's high, and everybody's getting prepped. We're running different perimeter checks, and the gate's shut down. Everything's getting shut down, and people are freaking out. We got people stuck in cars on the base. They can't go anywhere because everything's just there. It's a parking lot, and everybody's freaking out, and there's nothing. Nobody knows anything. So it's definitely crazy. But Captain Hutto, you were somewhere completely different. So can you tell our listeners what was going on with you on 9/11?
Sure. I was 19 years old. I was a civilian, still trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life. I was working at a newspaper, Times and Democrat, based out of Orangeburg, South Carolina at the time. And I worked in the circulation department. And I just remember that morning being fairly quiet, and someone coming into our department saying, hey, there's a plane that hit one of the Twin Towers. So I go to the break room and check it out. And I just remember feelings of sorrow, kind of tragedy, knowing that this type of accident had happened and occurred. And as we're watching, of course, the second plane hits, and what was peculiar was those feelings slowly changed to suspicion, anger, questioning what the heck is going on. The news department that was just next door to us was an absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Back then, the newspapers were still pretty much a major source for information, way before iPhones, smartphones. So you couldn't just pull out your phone and get, the latest news. So walking through there, people, writers and editors shouting like crazy. Everybody's on the phone, screaming to try to figure out what's going on. Reports coming in everywhere. Seems like every minute something was coming off the AP wire on a new piece of information that came in, but it was so fragmented that it was hard to make sense of what was going on. And we normally put out a daily newspaper, but the appetite for information was so great during that time that we put out a special edition for the afternoon. And we essentially gathered as much information as we could, packaged it up, nicely. And it was pretty much all hands on deck. Take all these newspapers out to every place in the city, newsstands, anywhere where we can get this information out. I can remember walking into a convenience store with a stack of newspapers, and people grabbing the newspapers out of my hands before they even hit the stand.
Yeah.
And the appetite and the desire for what's going on was so incredibly high. As a 19-year-old, that was the highest I'd ever experienced for just a frenzy for information. And then, of course, later on, we hear that the Pentagon's hit. The flight in Pennsylvania goes down.
Yeah.
And then I think we all kind of realized that this is most likely an attack. And I had been contemplating the military, the Air Force, up to that point. I hadn't made any decisions yet, but I think that's the catalyst that spurred me to go talk to recruiters. It took a while to eventually get into delayed entry and eventually into the basic training, which was February 2003. But it was things like that and realizing there's a greater need in the country right now. And I think that my time is better served, in the military than it is being a bean counter for the circulation department of this newspaper.
No, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting point, right? I think that it changed the perspective of many Americans at that point. I mean, all of us have been in for a day or two now, and we've been through the greater part of 20 years after the fact. Those first few years, really, the surge of recruitment was based on that feeling, that need to serve, based on some of these issues that happened. Um, so when you originally joined, what was the culture kind of like, right? What was the feeling of service to you, Miner?
Well, I can tell you it was a lot easier to get on base before that happened. Uh, Things felt a little more free and easy,
Right.
so to speak.
I remember, so like when everybody was joining when I first came in the 90s, it was like college. I'm doing my 4 years. I'm getting my GI Bill, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to make something of myself. And it was really focused in the line of I'm going to leverage this service for good, right? I'm gonna serve my country a little bit. I'm gonna get a GI Bill, and then I'm gonna go out and do something with it. I'm gonna get a little bit of this piece for me. And then after 9/11, you start talking to individuals, and you hear stories like Captain Hutto's, where there was a sense or an urgency in some senses of having to serve and do something, because as an American, we just couldn't stand for this to go, unacknowledged and working towards it. What do you think, Captain Hutto?
So I agree, and all of us that went in, and I can speak to those who were in my BMT flight, and then
Right.
of course others that I met later on. We all kind of knew we would probably get, tapped for some type of deployment. We knew what we were going into. I believe at that point in February of 03, we'd already gone into Iraq, and we were just going into, I want to say, Afghanistan at the time. And can remember our TI pulling us into the day room because CNN or Fox or someone was actually showing live footage of missiles being launched at night, into wherever they were,
Yeah.
whatever target it was. In that sense of like, this is real. So we thought that we would probably be involved in something pretty big, something pretty important, and then we're actually seeing it unfold
Right.
Before our eyes.
Shock and awe, right?
It was shock and awe for sure, and it made us realize really quickly that our commitments were real.
Right.
So that definitely impacted my very, very, very early outlook on my military career, only being in like literally weeks
Yeah.
at that point. So I never got to experience that kind of calm, I don't want to say calm, but more of that steady state, not at war.
Right. I mean, I came in right at the tail end of take the money and run, right? So everybody was getting the money and exiting when they were doing a big drawdown. So it was a lot different, right? We were flush with people. The mission set was pretty steady state. So yeah, we were doing support for Kosovo and S4, and then we were doing Southern Watch, Northern Watch on Iraq from post Desert Storm. So it was a lot different, right? It was normal rotations. It was a little bit more like, as you pointed out, Miner. Getting on base was, you had a sticker on your window, and it was you get to come in. Okay, now in UCOM and USAFE, it was a little bit different because we had a little bit longer history of having terrorist attacks, so you still get stopped at the gate quite often. It just depends. But then, post 9/11, right? That gate was shut down. I remember trying to get to my facility at Ramstein, and I was in traffic for like 45 minutes, and I couldn't go anywhere. So I turned around and parked in my apartment, which was miles away. Got on my mountain bike, rode some back trails to get to the gate, and got on base faster than anybody else did, because it was that kind of crazy to get on. But we had to do a mission, right? So it's definitely different. And going back to how crazy the newsroom was, I was in a comm facility, right? And everything was just nutty. Circuits are lighting up, circuit demands, circuit issues. We're just everybody. The system itself was just, everybody was clamoring for what's going on. What are we doing? How are we going to get after this? What's our posturing? Going right into Charlie, shutting everything down, then rolling back. How fast we roll back? What are those implementations? sit reps across the whole board. So it got really, really crazy really quick. And for me personally, it never stopped at that point. I'd gotten picked up for another unit. Went into a green door program, and I was out. And that led to 6 years of nothing but nonstop out the door TDYs and deployments for like 6 years of 190 days gone, right? And then even looking a little bit back, I remember tech school, and it was pre 9/11 obviously, and I remember sitting there, and one of our instructors goes, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand this about your job. You have about a 6-second life expectancy in a time of war. Being in critical infrastructure and everything like that. And okay, well, whatever. This guy's just trying to get one over on us." And then 9/11 happens, and you start realizing, oh crap, this might actually be true. And then when you get into other mission sets, it's you definitely understand how important all of these parts and pieces come in. So you said that understanding that why I'm serving is a lot different after that moment. How did the service change for you, Miner?
I think from what you described, things seemed kind of benign before, but then everybody started to rally.
Right.
And that was a good thing, both in the community and in the unit. And I can still remember one of our flight chiefs talking and telling us how you were going to see a change, more appreciation from the local community. And you did start to hear that more from people whenever they saw you out in uniform. Cap, you used the word sorrow. I felt the same thing, sorrow for my brothers and sisters and fellow Americans that who had been subjected to those attacks. And I think the strongest thought that I had was, how could anyone have the audacity to do that to us? Didn't they know who we were? Didn't they know who we were capable of?
Right.
And so now there was this kind of a united front that we were going to present.
Right. Definitely, there was a much more sense of purpose as a nation, I think, in those days leading after 9/11, everybody kind of took that punch, some families more so than others. I know that we had family members in New York, just a few blocks from the towers when it went all down. And then, that communication piece, things getting shut down, especially in New York, the phone lines on the civilian side going, bonkers, people trying to get a hold of people. There was hours, almost a day before we could reach those family members to find out that they were safe. Right. And then, all of those moments leading up, right, as you were watching on the TV, I was watching on TV, and then you got back briefed. You're like, okay, it's going down. You see the fires, you see news reports, and things are just going crazy. And then the time when the towers started dropping, right, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, this has gone way farther than we could have ever expected. Who's ever seen anything like this? Nobody, right? And it's just, all of that, trying to compute that, and what's that next step, right? So for you in uniform, me in uniform, and you in the civilian, what does this look like, and how do we kind of rally even further to make it? So I definitely look back at those times and wonder, what would we do today if that happened again? But hopefully we never have to do that. So, do you have any closing thoughts, Miner, on this subject?
9/11 is one of those things that I try to file away. I certainly didn't experience as much trauma as other people did, but it's not something that we like to revisit. However, it has continued to have an influence on me and has motivated me to serve. And it's just something that I draw strength from and draw satisfaction from, that I still get to join with my brothers and sisters in uniform and be part of the service.
Gotcha. What about you, Capt?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's making sure we tell the story, and now we have new enlistees who weren't even born when that happened.
Right.
So trying to get them to understand what happened and why it's so important to how we operate today can be challenging, because they didn't experience. I mean, I have children who were born just after 9/11 who can't understand.
Right.
And it's important that we don't forget, and we can pass on the importance of what happened, not just what happened, but how we responded and rebounded and rebuilt also.
No, I think that makes a great point, right, sir? The history of what we did and why we did it is important from when we go back to Billy Mitchell and the bringing on Air Force, when we talk about Doolittle raids, even though that was under Army Air Corps, when we talk about air power and how the Air Force responds to the need of a nation. I think that post 9/11 is a good example of, a moment where we saw something happen and we had to respond appropriately, from the airlift of getting resources into country, from shock and awe, then the continuous support of air power throughout the whole campaign. There's a lot of lessons learned, right? There's a lot of things that we can be proud of as a nation and proud of as an Air Force based on this example. Now, no one wants to say that that was something that we needed to learn those things. Nobody wanted any of those things to happen, nor do we look at it with any kind of sense of glee. But it's definitely, when we look at it optimistically, of the positives that came out of these moments, it's that ability to learn, that ability to flex, and prove that United States Air Force is the greatest air power out there. And look at what we did. We did this, we did that. And I think that, tying that to our airmen today is very key of, whenever something arises, the Air Force rises with it. With no matter if it's a terrorist action, whether it's, warfare from nation to nation, the Air Force always steps up and manages to execute the mission without flaw. And we are quite successful. And then even tying that into cyber, right? This is what we do here. This is how this happens, and here's how we've learned from all of these issues that have gone after it. So it's definitely some good things to come out of a really, really bad situation. That's my thoughts. So that, gentlemen, I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing your stories. They're both unique, both insightful. Hopefully the gladiators out there can reminisce as well with a positive, optimistic look of lessons learned. And then also understand that, we would look back on our lost brothers and sisters and take a moment of thought for them. That said, gladiators, hope you have a great day. And remember, stab your enemies in the face through cyberspace.